In a time before the Great Reveal, the residents of the lands between had different methods of dealing with death. Specifically, they burned dead bodies in continuous ghost flame fires, which the death rite birds were once responsible for. In this video, I'm going to show you an Elden Ring build that is about the death rite birds, the skeletal bird-like creatures found throughout the lands between. They only appear at night and there are 4 of them in this game. To get the equipment needed for this build, you have to kill all 4 of them. Yeah, there are another 4 death birds, not death rite birds, but we are not gonna use what they drop. In this build, you can be an all-around player. You can cast spells, use different weapon skills, and have 2 types of melee attacks. The most important thing about this build is that it is really powerful. As always, I'm gonna showcase everything I use and where you can get them. The timestamp is attached to the screen, you can pick it up anywhere you want, so sit back and enjoy yourself. Let's dive in. First, you need to have the proper stats. I'm level 200 in the New Game Plus, and this build focuses primarily on intelligence because the weapon skills and the majority of spells we use on it scale with intelligence, so you need to level it up to 80. Also, I'd recommend you have around 40 and 30 levels of dexterity and strength respectively, as they are important in weapon scaling on this build as well. I have 30 faith to make it possible to cast all the spells needed for this build. Lastly, 40 vigor and 15 endurance would be enough. Next, let's check the equipment. You have various options here, but the main one is Death's Poker weapon skill. Ghost Flame Ignition is insanely powerful. You can see it causes more than 11,000 damage to Placidus Axe and 40,000 damage to Fire Giant. Melee hits are also decent with this great sword, but the skill is the real deal. Ghost Flame Ignition only scales with intelligence. It deals 100% magic damage and can be boosted by wearing the Spellblade set that I'm gonna cover later in this video. You can create a trail of ghost flame damage that travels really far away and it deals extremely high damage on that path, and also creates a ton of frostbite build up to the point that almost anything will die within seconds. You can use this skill in 3 different ways. If you pick 75% of the way through the moveset, you can make an AoE stagger bomb by hitting R2 or a grand dot projectile by hitting R1. You can even aim the projectile at the very last moment, but choosing neither option leaves the initial ghost fireball in place, which will continue to deal damage and frost build up, effectively giving you 3 variations in the weapon art depending on the situation. This weapon can be obtained after killing a death rite bird in the southeast of the Ionia swamp. The second armament in your right hand is Death Ritual Spear. This weapon scales primarily with strength, dexterity and intelligence, and is a good weapon to engage in both close and ranged combats. You can pierce enemies during battle or use its skill, a spear called Ritual. It summons a downpour of spectral spears. The spears come in very fast, so they are extremely hard to dodge, and most importantly, they seem to hit the same spot relatively easier compared to the similar skills cast from the sky. So this one barely misses, and it's also amazing at stunning enemies, especially bosses with large hitboxes. Just like Death's Poker, to acquire this spear you must defeat a death rite bird, but this time in the mountain tops of the giants. In your left hand, you have 2 options for this staff, the Prince of Death's staff and the Carrion Regal Scepter. After maxing out both of them on this build, Prince of Death offers 318 scaling and a 10% boost to the power of death sorceries. On the other hand, Carrion Regal Scepter can give you 373 sorcery scaling. So the decision is yours. I myself go with the Prince of Death as it matches more to the style of this build. You can find it near the nameless Eternal City side of Grace in Deeproot Depths. I strongly suggest you have a seal equipped to cast the Golden Vow. You don't even need to upgrade it. You can use any seal you like. I use Finger Seal, which can be purchased from the Twin Maiden Husks at the Round Table Hold for only 800 runes. The Spellblade set increases the damage of magic dealing Ashes of War and weapon skills by 2% per piece. This build is linked to using weapon skills, so by equipping all 4 pieces of this set, we would get an 8% boost in Ghost Flame Ignition and a spear called Ritual. This set can be found at the Round Table Hold after Sorcerer Roger's death. The first talisman to use on this build is the Shard of Alexander. This increases the attack power of skills by 15% in both PvE and PvP. You can only get this item after completing the Iron Fist Alexander questline. If you kill him before that, you will get Warrior Jar Shard, which is the weaker version of Shard of Alexander, and it gives you a 10% skill boost. The next one is the Graven Mass Talisman, which raises the potency of sorcery spells by 8%. This is an upgraded version of Graven Skull Talisman, which gives you a 4% boost. I'm not gonna use them both on this build, but they don't conflict and you are allowed to stack them to have a 12% spell damage boost. The Graven Mass Talisman can be obtained by solving the Albinoric Rise puzzle. The easiest way to solve it is to summon fanged imtashes that you can buy from the isolated merchant near the main academy site of Grace and let them kill the other imps there. The third talisman is Earth Tree's Favor +2. It increases HP by 4%, stamina by 10% and equip load by 8%. For getting this item you must go to the Forbidden Land side of Grace. And the last one is the Dragon Crest Great Shield, which reduces the physical damage taken by 20% in PvE and 5% in PvP. In order to get this item you should go to Elfale, Brace of the Helic Tree. Magic Scorpion Charm could be an option as it increases the magic power, but it reduces the damage negation at the same time. And the set we use is not so defensively strong, so I don't want to use it on this build. For the Flask of Wondrous Physic, I use Magic Shrouding tier to boost magic attacks by 20% in PvE and 12.5% in PvP. This tier is dropped by Earth Tree Avatar in northeastern Liurnia of the Lakes. The second tier is the Grimburst Crystal tier to increase the stamina recovery speed by 15 per second. You can get it after killing the Putrid Avatar found at the Minor Earth Tree in Kaleed east of the Smoldering Church. The effects of both tiers last for 3 minutes. I'd recommend you allocate at least 8 cerulean tiers to make sure you would have enough juice for casting and weapon skills. Okay, now let's talk about these spells. As mentioned earlier, we are dealing with death sorceries on this build. Death sorceries that we use here include Ancient Death Rancor, Explosive Ghost Flame, Rancor Call, and Tibia Summons. These sorceries require intelligence and faith. Ancient Death Rancor sends 9 Spirit Skulls and costs 21 FP, which is so expensive for us, but with this spell you won't be worried about missing the target. The projectiles will usually hit the target and also have PvP opponents constantly dodging to avoid being staggered. This spell would be dropped by the Death Rite Bird in Liurnia of the Lakes. The normal Rancor is the cheaper version but only effective against the weaker enemies. This sends 6 spirits and incurs much less damage compared to the Ancient Death Rancor. You can get this spell by killing a Teardrop Scarab that can be found in the underground crypt of the Stormwheel Castle near the Lift Side Chamber side of Grace. The best thing about the Explosive Ghost Flame spell is the Frostbite build-up that it inflicts on opponents. Initial Explosion deals 130 and Flames deal 38 per tick. To get this spell you need to defeat the last Death Rite Bird in the consecrated snowfield. The Tibia Summons is a spell where the caster summons 3 skeleton spirit that attacks with an overhead slash around the targeted area. It can be used to initiate fights as the spell can hit enemies from far as long as you are locked onto them. However, Tibia Summons can miss if used on a moving target, so it is ideal to use it on stationary enemies instead. It can be obtained by defeating the Tibia Mariner that appears in the Windham Ruins. Besides the death sorceries, I would suggest 2 more attacking spells, Zamorai's Storm and Night Comet. Based on the fact that most of our attacks in this build incur Frostbite, Zamorai's Storm inflicts Frostbite AD on enemies. It creates a freezing tornado and can be found on a corpse in the mountain tops of the giants. Night Comet is arguably one of the best options against enemies or even bosses who consistently dodge your attacks. It is a night sorcery and allows you to fire semi-invisible magic comets. It can be found in a chest in Celia, Town of Sorcery. Lastly, don't forget to have the Golden Vow equipped as well to give you a 15% damage boost in PvE and 7.5% in PvP. It also improves the damage negation by 10%. You can get this in the Corpse Stained Shack in Mythical Mere. Okay guys, that was everything you need for the Death Rite build. If you have made it this far, please don't forget to like, comment and hit the subscribe button. It helps a lot. Thank you, I'll see you in the next one.